meeting tonight is now open for sharing testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Tom from Iowa, go ahead.
I am grateful for practitioner support, which is helping me to find different job leads to lead to employment. I spend some hours each weekday looking for jobs so I can move into a place of my own. The practitioner has given me the article Place by Mary Baker Eddy to work with. And it says somewhere in there, there's no human tyrant, not the exact words, but there's no human tyrant in my experience to hold me down. I find this to be true, which I wasn't getting before. My mind is quiet, and sometimes it seems I go from success to success. I still have plenty of time, and I'm working at all of this as much as I can. Every day, the good Lord gives me things to do. Just yesterday, I rented a safe deposit box at my bank for all my important papers, and I'm enjoying this newfound freedom. I'm becoming more disciplined, going to sleep at night, and I'm ready for the next day. A lot of my fears abated, and what I thought before would be dire happenings has spread into glorious vistas for opportunity. I am so grateful for Christ Jesus, Mary Baker Eddy, and this beautiful independent church. Thank you for those readings tonight, Florence, and everyone have a good night.
Thank you. Gary.
Thank you very much, Florence, for those readings. Love is indeed a very powerful force because, as Mrs. Eddy tells us, love is God, or God is love. Well, it reminded me of one of the experiences I had. It was a few years ago, but I woke one morning with a pain in my shoulder. And that day I had some work to do, and I got started working, but every time I tried to lift my arm above my shoulder, it caused a very extreme, sharp pain. And it was diagnosed as bursitis. Well, thank God I was able to call a Christian Science practitioner from this church for help. And what I remember the most was the love that I was met with from the practitioner. It was just an overwhelming divine love. I felt comfort, and I felt the confidence that God was right there and that God could take care of anything. I was given a statement from Science and Health, our textbook, and that statement I was given was, quote, "Matter can make no conditions for man," end quote. And I was also told that it is the divine mind, or God, which governs all the actions of the body. Well, I took a few minutes to pray, be quiet, and very quickly I could feel God's love just covering me. It was a wonderful feeling, and very soon I felt very peaceful, and I went back to the work that I was doing, and in just a matter of minutes, the pain left, and I was able to move my arm freely, totally, without any pain whatsoever. And I'm happy to say that condition never returned. So I'm very grateful for this healing, very grateful for the help of the practitioner who brought God's love to me and made it quite clear. And I'm very grateful tonight now to be here with you all. I'm very grateful to Mary Baker Eddy for giving us this tremendous science, discovering it, founding really the church and everything that goes with it. It's so good to be here with you, and have a good night.
Thank you. Okay, Craig.
Thank you, Florence, for those really helpful readings. You could see how much Mary Baker Eddy loved the workers before her, Christ Jesus and disciples, and understood and honored them in the Lord's Prayer. And what she said on unity and how it's embodied in this church. Now, she says how wondrous and effective and if I got it all right, how invincible and powerful it is. I feel that as a church. I just recently had the support of a practitioner for venturing on beyond this town to help a loved one or support them who they weren't in Christian Sciences. And God made my wife and I know the right thing to do all the time. When the weather was bad, on the way, told us when to stop and where to go, and and getting us up and to where we need to be when we need to be there. And I thank God, because to me that's still the power of unity. Even though I was away from this church, the church was still with me, and the kindness and the positive certainty of God's love was with me and for everybody there, and they felt it. And and they left smiling and certain that God was in control and was blessing. It meant a lot to me. My grandma was a First Baptist in South, told me this story, and I didn't know how proud she was that I was a member of this church until she came to visit one time. And she had said, I'm a tramp for God. Basically, she said, I'm happy that I'm a tramp for God. I'll do anything for God. And I said, yeah, I think she really got it down. Nothing's more important just to be humble and to be happy with the work you do for God's direction. Yeah. And I feel that way too. So to Mary Baker Reddy, I thank her for helping me to become a tramp for God.
Thank you. Luba from Ohio, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Florence, for those beautiful readings. I'm so grateful for all this church provides on its website for the entire world. This week, my practitioner suggested I read an article on the website entitled The Way to Freedom by Kate Buck. The article was short but precise in its message. She says, our purpose in Christian Science is not just for the healing, but we must put off the old man by the renewing of our mind. We can in no way put old wine into new bottles. And to me, this means continual growth and refinement. So I'm very grateful to my practitioner for her continual support and all that goes on in this church. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Debbie from Illinois, go ahead.
Thank you. This afternoon, I had an appointment to have some items moved from the attic at one location to another location. While I was waiting for the gentleman to arrive, I was listening to this week's lesson. And the appointment time came and left, and the gentleman had not arrived. And I heard Divine Mind say to me, wait until the lesson's over and then give him a call. And so that's exactly what I did. And when I reached him, he said it would be another half hour before he would arrive. And I thanked him. And as soon as the call ended, erroneous thoughts started to pop up, questioning how would the scheduling work and would I be able to complete everything that was planned. Then I heard, again, Divine Mind say to me, as Bicknell Young says in his article, Day, I have nothing to do today but know the truth. So I continued to know the truth, and the gentleman arrived an hour and 45 minutes late. I knew that the light bulb in the attic wasn't working, so I had a new light bulb and asked him to replace it. And so he went up in the attic and he changed the light bulb, but the light still wouldn't come on. And he tried to see if he could fix it, but to no avail, so there was no light in the attic. So I said to him, "Can you still bring the contents down from the attic?" And he said, "Well, of course, yet I'm not afraid of the dark." So very gratefully, he was able to bring the items down, and then everything was moved to the second location. And it was moved to the second location in time that I was able to load up my dog in the car, take some items to the donation site, and then my dog and I had a very lovely evening walk. I am so extremely grateful for divine principle, which is in control of every situation, and also for truth's law of adjustment, which always results in a good outcome for all. With much love, good night.
Thank you. Yeah, this is Bruce. Yeah, my testimony tonight is about a healing I had. It was a couple of weeks ago. I was sitting on my sofa in the living room, and I kept having this rather ominous, anxious feeling. So I didn't sit there and just mull over it, but I picked up the lesson for that week, and I was healed from one of the passages that was in the lesson. And this is it, from Hebrews. "For ye are not come unto the mount that might be touched, and that burned with fire, nor unto blackness, darkness, and tempest. But ye are come unto Mount Zion, and unto the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to an innumerable company of angels." And after I read that, I thought about it very briefly, and I was healed. That ominous sense of anxiety stopped coming. But my thought processes at the time were like this. I'm wondering why they described the two as two different mounts or mountains. The second one I understood because it related to elevated thought or elevated consciousness. But the first one, the blackness, darkness, and tempest, I think he was trying to say that sometimes it appears like it gets piled high and deep and keeps coming. Of course, it has no real substance to it, but it can look that way. So I made this declaration that I will not be underneath a pile that's high and deep of blackness, darkness, and tempest, nor can anyone else. That's certainly not God's plan for anyone. But rather, God's plan is that we all have an elevated thought, an elevated consciousness, and feel that wonderful company of innumerable angels. And with that, the healing came, and I felt my peace come back again. So I'm very grateful for the inspired Word of God. And I also wanted to say thanks to Florence for the marvelous readings that we heard tonight. Jessica from Alabama, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Jessica Glasgow, and I suppose we can all relate to that anxiety, that old feeling, that old naggy old feeling that you just got to get out, or something, And and when I have that kind of feeling, I like to read Science and Health, and I also managed to get prose work. I finally managed to get it on the Bard Mobile National Library Service. The prose works, I had part of it at one time, but I managed to get the whole thing in audio form on the National Library Service. And I love Science and Health and prose works. It's amazing how plain they are. And it seems like it would be much easier if things were done simply today, like it was in her time, Mary Baker Eddy's time. And I would say that Mary Baker Eddy, she has pretty much all the answers to the most universal questions that we would want to know, and about forgiving debts and sickness and all kinds of things. She seems like she was wiser beyond her time, and so I really do. I enjoy her. Science and Health and Prose Works, they give me a lot of comfort, and I love to look at her life. And I've often wondered, too, what it would be like to go to the Massachusetts Metaphysical College, too. And I bet that would have been a lot of fun. And so, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Tony or Lenny from Georgia, go ahead.
Hey, it's Tony. Thank you, Florence, for those readings tonight on this unifying love, and it's so true. This idea that we have to understand one mind is in control, and there's not all these separate people and separate interests all competing against each other, and it's really, really helped kind of cut through a lot of the noise. I wanted to testify to the power of Christian Science in my life. I recently had this very aggressive suggestion come that I was, it felt like the flu. It just came out of nowhere. And I think in the past, I probably would have thought, hey, I've been, reading my lesson. I've been doing this, that, and the other. Why would this come to me? And having now been at this church for some time, I've learned the proper operation of science and what a scientist does when we are tempted. And instead of giving that thought even an inch, I barred the door immediately because it was like a foreign intruder. I knew there was absolutely no truth in that claim. And I look back on that, and I think that's the operation of understanding the science and knowing, like we read in Genesis, God created man in his own image and likeness. This is the truth. And when something comes to you, instead of trying to argue or wrestle with it, why are you here? No. It has zero power. And I just planted my feet very firmly on the rock. Did not give that thought, didn't give that temptation any reality. And within a very few short hours, all the symptoms had completely vanished. And it really honestly gave me so much more confidence too that, I can practice Christian Science. And I give so much credit to being in the right mental atmosphere to now be receptive to the truth. And that mental atmosphere is maintained by the practitioners, the members, and the principled work that goes on in this church. And I am deeply grateful to see that, to witness it, to feel it in my life. And so grateful to just be here tonight and be able to testify to that truth. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jeremy.
I am very grateful for all I am learning in this church about Christian Science and for all the ways that I have been healed and blessed in my time here. Before coming to Plainfield, I had quite a bit of resentment towards both my parents. Once I arrived, my practitioner was able to start helping me to forgive and let go of all that baggage. And through it all, I was not sure if it was all gone until this past weekend. On Saturday morning, my dad texted me. We rarely communicate, so I ended up being quite pleased when our back and forth went on for over an hour. Made me happy on many levels, one of which is that it was sure proof that Christian Science and practitioner support have healed me of all the negative thoughts I have had about him and our relationship.
And then later on in that evening, my youngest child called and we spoke for a while. And then they asked if we could video chat to see some project they were working on. Well, at some point in the video call, they made a face which reminded me of my mom, who passed some time ago. And seeing that look made me very happy. And once again, I was shown that Christian Science and practitioner support have healed me of all the resentment and anger I once had. It is so wonderful to see all the ways that being a member of this church has helped and healed and blessed me. Thank you. And now we have a testimony from Imogen in Australia.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for this Holy Testimony meeting tonight, these beautiful readings and hymns. We are very blessed to have Plainfield Independent sharing pure Christian Science through all the activities of this church, the wonderful roundtables, the church services, the Bible studies, and these beautiful testimony meetings. Tonight I would like to thank God for giving us everything that we need. Back in early 2020, my husband and I had gone through a very competitive process with our business at the time to win a large piece of work for a global leadership conference. We put in many long days and weeks to research and write some rather specialised products, and after winning the tender, we doubled down and produced a suite of leadership materials, including printing out hundreds of leadership books ready for the conference. Well, 2 days before the conference was due to start, the pandemic hit Australia. The borders were snapped shut, all flights were cancelled, our global delegates could not enter the country, and following this, our lockdown started. So here we were with hundreds of printed books, venues booked, months of work already done, and payday for this entire body of work now cancelled. We thought we were going to lose our home throughout that time, but through God's love, we were able to negotiate with one of our main clients, and they agreed to pay for the work that we had done to date. And whilst that didn't include the printing outlay, it was certainly better than nothing, and we had enough funds to keep going. Since then, it has been a very bumpy ride over the last 4 years, gaining just the right piece of work at just the right time to see us through in between these very quiet periods without work. There have been some very tough times, no doubt, but so many blessings, like the so-called pandemic never made us sick. What a huge blessing. Being healthy and strong, able to work out and lift weights, being able to walk freely through our city. I'll never forget how good it felt to take our masks off outside after 280 days of mandates. It was such a grand relief to feel the breeze on one's cheek. And best of all, I've had the ability to study the Bible, our textbook, and some of our early workers' writings through this church over this time. So that is a lot to be thankful for. Even though it may turn out differently or not quite what we had our hearts set on, God is always there doing his omnipotent work, looking after all the hairs on every head of every one of his dear children. I'm so very, very grateful that we have been safe throughout this period. We have been able to make ends meet. It is remarkable and so wonderful that we are safe. Only God could have done that. So tonight I do thank our dear God of love for keeping us safe. Thank you, Christ Jesus. Thank you, Mary Baker Eddy. And I thank my dear Plainfield practitioner for her love, her teaching, and her patience as I learn this truth, that God does supply every single thing that we need. Each breath we take, each step we go, all the good and all the love in all the world, that is him supplying us with all that we need. I am so grateful. God bless this dear independent Christian Science church, all of you, our practitioners, teachers, workers, members, and friends. We are all one in the love of God, and I am so grateful that the world can feel God's love and know that he is King and Lord, and we are all brother and sister. Wherever we are in this adventure called life, we are all one in God. Thank you all so much, and so much love to you all.
Thank you.
And now we have a testimony from Sylvia in Australia.
Good evening, and thank you for the readings. One of the biggest lessons I've had to learn was after my partner of 15 years told me one day he wanted to break up. At the time, I just said, "Whatever makes you happy." And then we spoke about other mundane things. But inside, I was shocked and broken. He did not know, but I cried inconsolably the next day and did not know how I could possibly exist without him. After a full day of crying, I called a practitioner at Plainfield who asked me who I loved more, him or God. She made me realize that I had a very dependent relationship with my partner. I always sought his approval and wanted his opinion on everything, and would bounce things off him before making a decision. She made me realize I was not obeying the first commandment. God always comes before any person. She told me God is my partner and best friend, and said, "Let's leave this with God who knows what's best for you, and stop worrying your pretty head about it." Well, that put an immediate stop to all my tears. I started studying Christian Science more avidly, and for the first time in my life I was learning to love God supremely and to not put finite love into infinite love. A lecture that helped me a lot was called "Step Out of Your Story into Healing" by John Benson. It basically gave the same message, which is that if we ask God to solve our problems, and in this case fix our relationships, this is upside-down worship. True worship is loving God supremely, and God knows nothing about our story. But by worshipping God, healing is the result, and the problem fades away. It took me about 1.5 years, but eventually I got to the point where I realized I had lost the desperate desire to have my partner back, and in fact no longer saw him with rose-colored glasses. I could see that we were not that well suited, and I'm very happy that he is a friend and no more. I found happiness and completeness without a codependent relationship. My gratitude to Christian Science is unbounded for teaching me a different way of being.
Thank you. Chardell.
Good evening. Tonight I would like to express my gratitude for being taught here how to watch, and for all the people who do watches or write them. We have unity watches 3 times a week. And these particular watches are what initially drew me to this wonderful church. Before coming to this church, I was told negative things about Plainfield, but I wanted to find out for myself. It was so long ago that I don't exactly remember how I got involved with the watching right away. But I knew this was it, the truth which I had been looking for. I even did the watches when I was away from home, which was a big, big blessing. The amazing people here did watches day and night during the court case that brought them independence. They set their alarm clocks just as Mrs. Eddy's students did. And they, even with little children, they did their watches faithfully, and they stand in that watching they stood for many, many years. And so we are here today, always putting God first, with joy, humility, and obedience. Thank you, Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent, for allowing me to be a small part of your cause, the cause of pure Christian Science, as Mrs. Eddy taught and lived. I would like to add also that we have watchers for the weather. We have 22 people who watch over the world and love God's atmosphere. And We pray for the fires, if any come, earthquakes, knowing the real truth, and it has been very, very effective. We also, in the Unity Watches, have about 51 people. That's an average. And it probably will continue to even grow. These are wonderful, wonderful watches, and they have changed the world, I know. Thank you.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all this beautiful testimonies about how you're using God's truth to overcome all these errors that come to us. I love how Mrs. Eddy has so explained love to us, and where else can we dwell but in love? Because in love there is no sorrow, there's no pain, there's no fear. I'm just so grateful for learning this, so grateful to her for discovering the science of Christ and sharing it with the whole world. I have one testimony from Germany, and she says that thank you, Plainfield, for opening up a well-loved testimony meeting. I am grateful that this exists and that I am able to share a bit of my most recent experiences. I recently found out that the storage for my art archive and material had been sold, and that the price of maintaining this facility would go up to 300 euros a month. So I spoke with my Plainfield practitioner about this. She assured me that I am in my right place, and so is my older work and art material. I realized that I needed to change my thought about supply and lack, and she gave me material to study from the Blue Book, pages 224 to 227. So I studied these pages, especially holding on to, I saw the love of God encircling the universe and man, filling all space, and that divine love so permeated my own consciousness that I loved with Christ-like compassion everything I saw. This is a statement by Mrs. Eddy. I began to acknowledge this on the bus, on the train, walking through drizzling streets, and teaching at a company. I just let go of the feeling of powerlessness to let the power of God embrace me. What happened was my neighbor offered me to use her space, so I gave notice to the storage space. And this makes me so grateful that by letting go, I let God show me the way. The shepherd truly is our friend and shows us how to go and feed God's sheep. Thank you so much for dedicated and loving work of the Plainfield practitioners, workers, checkers, website creators, and developers, for all of us to grow as God's radiant ideas, where Radiant Room is there for me and all. So grateful to be here tonight. So grateful. I missed the prelude music though, but so grateful to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary.
Good evening, everyone. A few things to read tonight. First, New Hampshire. I'm so grateful to Christian Science and truly do not know how I would manage without it. I listen every night to the round table, and that is what I fall asleep to. So grateful for the calming words and truth that is given. Thank you, Plainfield, for your church, your website, and for all you do for our world. And then Canada, this is referring to Sunday service. First, the quote from what was sung. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me, the peace that was meant to be, with God as our Father, in perfect harmony. End quote. Such a beautiful song and singing such beautiful hymns, such a lovely service in total. I'm just checking in to say thank you for all you do and for all the loving members at our holy place of worship. With love. And then this is from Sweden. Dear friends, it has been a long time since we had regular contact. Seemingly, the so-called Adam dream took charge over me, letting me drift away from Christian Science altogether, which was dreadful. Recently, I was prompted to take up the sincere study of absolute Christian Science, and I felt divinely inspired to do so. For many years now, I almost denied divine truth, but suddenly the Lord woke me up, and I realized and blessed me with his goodness and heavenly love. As described in the scriptures and in Science and Health, evil forces will try to nip at the Christ child as soon as it was born. I believe this is happening in our days. For over 20 years, I've been called a psychiatric student, forced to use heavy drugs against my own will. It reminds me of the cruel treatment of our dear Helen Wright, who has done so much good for Christian Science today. Error in all its forms is at the heel of truth, and truth is conquering it all. I am so very glad for the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent, teaching pure Christian Science as Mrs. Eddy taught it. As a community, we can express Christian unity, the fellowship of men, here and now. My parents are extremely hateful against Christian Science and the Christ idea, and as a result of this, they took all my books and put them in the waste paper basket. They also don't want me to have access to the internet. But now, dear friends, first of all, I very much look forward to hearing from you again. Just knowing that you are out there and that I am not alone is such a wonderful blessing. If possible, please send me a copy of Science and Health as well as prose works. I also very much would like some current available material. Many thanks in advance. With best regards, from Johan in Sweden. So we're very grateful to hear from our dear friends from around the world and to know that this healing truth is blessing everyone and giving them just what they need at the time. I'm grateful too. Those were such beautiful healing readings tonight. The blessed balm of love. There's a balm in Gilead. I feel like it's given such a wonderful benediction over our world. I too am grateful for what Mrs. Eddy has taught us about love and how the answer is always, in every instance, to love more, as she says. So I'm very grateful to be here with all you dear people tonight, and have a good night.
Thank you.